You know she'd be proud of you, don't you?
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no, of course. But it's a great shame that she's not here, and that every day depending on what I'm doing, I wonder what it would be like if she was here, and what she would say, and how she would be making everybody else laugh as well.
At 42, Prince Harry has finally spoken up about something no one was ever supposed to know about his mother, Princess Diana. His words have caught us off guard as he has finally revealed the true story behind her mother's death.
Mainly proof that she was in the car, proof that she was injured, and proof that the very paparazzi that chased her into the tunnel were the ones that were taking photographs of her lying half dead on the backseat of the car.
Diana, the beloved people's princess, may have captured the hearts of the world, but it seems she didn't have the same effect on those closest to her. After hearing Prince Harry's latest revelation, we are sure something suspicious is happening behind palace walls. What exactly did Prince Harry say this time? Could this be the confirmation we have all been waiting for? Let's find out. Life before the drama. Let's pause for a second before listening to Prince Harry's big revelation and take a moment to understand Princess Diana's life before she was thrown into a whirlwind of drama. It is important to get a clear picture of where she came from before the whole world fell in love with her. And yes, that world was much more complicated than it seemed. Diana was not your average girl next door. She was born into nobility. We are talking about deep ties to the royal family here. Her father, John Spencer, was the 8th Earl Spencer, and her mother, Frances Roche, came from a well-established aristocratic family. And to top it off, Diana was born at none other than Sandringham, which was the Queen's private estate. Can you imagine that? While most of us were playing in our backyards or at the park, Diana's childhood playground was part of the royal estate. This was not a typical upbringing. She even grew up with the Queen's sons, Prince Edward and Prince Andrew, playing together like any other kids would. But despite all of this luxury, things behind the scenes were not quite as glamorous as they appeared. You see, her parents' marriage was not the picture-perfect union people imagined. From the outside, it may have looked like they had it all: wealth, status, and royal connections. But behind the doors, there were plenty of struggles. Their relationship was shaken by tragedy when Diana's older brother, John, passed away shortly after birth. Losing a child is unimaginable, and it left deep scars on her parents. Diana, even though she was just a child, was not shielded from the tension that followed. By the time Diana was born, the cracks in her parents' relationship were widening. Things went from bad to worse when her little brother, Charles, was born. Instead of bringing the family closer, it seemed to tear them further apart. Her mother and father eventually separated, and at just 7 years old, Diana watched her family fall apart. Her mother left, and it was not for the reasons people would assume. Infidelity played a part, yes, but that's not the whole story. Her father won custody of the children after a bitter court battle, and Diana's life, as she knew it, completely changed. From that point forward, she was mostly raised by nannies and shipped off to boarding school, away from home and the ongoing drama. Now, let's talk about boarding school. You would think with her background, Diana would be top of her class, right? Well, not quite. School was not really her thing. She struggled academically and didn't have much interest in hitting the books. Instead, she was much more focused on friends and extracurricular activities. You can't exactly blame her though. With everything going on at home, her mind was not really on her studies. Then came another shakeup. In 1976, her father remarried. His new wife, Reine, Countess of Dartmouth, didn't exactly get a warm welcome from Diana and her siblings. And by didn't get a warm welcome, I mean they flat out despised her. They even gave her the not-so-endearing nickname Acid Reine. That should give you an idea of how much tension there was. One famous incident was when Diana, in a fit of anger, reportedly almost pushed Reine down the stairs during an argument. But the blows kept coming. Just a couple of years later, in 1978, Diana's father passed away from a brain hemorrhage. The family was already fragile, and this loss broke the family completely. It was clear at this point that Diana was not going to follow the traditional royal path laid out for her. She was not academically inclined like her sisters, and after failing her O-levels twice, she left school at 16. Instead of leaning on her family's wealth and connections, Diana struck out on her own. She moved to London and worked odd jobs. That's right, Diana, the future Princess of Wales, worked as a nanny, cleaned, and even taught dance classes to make ends meet. It is not exactly the story we expect from someone with her background, but that's what made Diana so relatable. She didn't let her aristocratic roots define her. She was determined to carve out her own path. But just when she thought she was free from the pressures of her family's expectations, Prince Charles entered her life. Her older sister Sarah had already briefly dated Charles, and at first, Diana didn't think much of him. In fact, she found him a bit boring. But Diana, being the respectful sister she was, kept her distance and didn't interfere with Sarah's fling. Then, after a few days, things changed. Charles and Sarah's fling fizzled out, and suddenly, Charles was showing more interest in Diana. By this time, Diana was 19, and Charles, well, he was much older, and let's just say, looking for a wife. A weekend trip to Balmoral was all it took for their relationship to escalate. They spent more time together, and before Diana knew it, Charles had proposed. Even though they were heading toward a royal wedding, Diana was not fully convinced this was the right path for her. She had her doubts, big doubts, and those doubts had a lot to do with another woman, Camilla Parker Bowles. Charles and Camilla had a connection that went far beyond just old friends, and Diana could sense it. She knew deep down that she didn't have Charles's whole heart. Despite her doubts, Diana went through with the wedding. She was just 20 years old, walking down the aisle in front of the entire world, knowing in her gut that something was not right. But she smiled for the cameras, said her vows, and became the Princess of Wales. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of the storm that would follow. The crowded marriage. By now, Diana had entered the crowded marriage, a marriage where her husband was interested in someone else. From the very beginning, the warning signs were there. What should have been a time for Diana and Charles to enjoy their honeymoon phase ended up being one of the loneliest periods for Diana. She was newly married, trying to bond with her husband, but instead she was met with emotional walls. Charles just was not all in. He had one foot in the past, specifically with Camilla Parker Bowles. It didn't take long for Diana to feel the impact of this emotional neglect. She struggled with bulimia, a coping mechanism that developed out of the anxiety and loneliness she felt in her marriage. And Charles was not much help. In fact, he brushed aside her worries about Camilla, leaving Diana feeling even more isolated. When Diana announced she was pregnant with their first child in October 1981, there was a glimmer of hope. Maybe this would be the thing that brought them together. After all, a new baby can often work wonders for a couple, but not for these two. Even the excitement of expecting a child could not fix the cracks in their relationship. Diana's pregnancy was not easy either. She suffered from severe morning sickness, and her emotional state became worse. Then, one day, in sheer desperation for Charles's attention, Diana threw herself down the stairs while pregnant. She was so emotionally shattered that she resorted to this drastic act, hoping it would make Charles see her. But instead of rushing to her side in concern, what did Charles do? He rode off on his horse. It was such a cold thing to do, it is no wonder Diana felt abandoned. Then, in June 1982, Prince William was born. Diana was thrilled to become a mother, and for a short while, it seemed like there might be some light at the end of the tunnel. But the pressures of royal life, along with the emotional strain of her marriage, quickly caught up with her. She battled postpartum depression, and the royal family was not exactly a supportive shoulder to lean on. Diana was more alone than ever. In 1984, Diana found out she was pregnant again, this time with Prince Harry. And once again, for a brief moment, it seemed like things might improve. She was feeling better, more confident. But when she found out she was expecting another boy, she didn't rush to tell Charles. Why? Well, because Charles had made it clear that he was hoping for a girl. When Harry was born, Charles's disappointment was so obvious. It was like a punch to the gut for Diana, who was already hanging on by a thread. Even Queen Elizabeth was reportedly unimpressed with Charles's attitude, though she maintained a respectful relationship with Diana. With each passing year, Diana's mental health took more hits. The strain of royal duties, the constant pressure of public life, and Charles's coldness wore her down. She tried everything to cope, from medication to sleep aids, anything to ease the emotional pain she was carrying. But nothing could prepare her for the crushing blow of discovering that Charles had rekindled his relationship with Camilla. Charles was back in Camilla's arms, and Diana was left heartbroken. But instead of confronting the situation, Diana kept up appearances, maintaining that perfect royal image while everything around her crumbled. But let's be real, Diana was not one to suffer in silence forever. A man entered her life. It was James Hewitt, her riding instructor. In her desperation for love and affection, Diana found solace in Hewitt's company. Of course, the media caught wind of the rumors, and suddenly Diana's private life became tabloid fodder. No one in the royal family was attached to her. Her connection with Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, was pretty cold. But in 1988, something happened during a ski trip in Switzerland, and it brought Diana and Sarah closer together. Charles and Andrew were involved in a deadly avalanche, and though both princes survived, one of their companions, Hugh Lindsay, tragically died. The event shook Diana to her core, and for a moment, she and Sarah found common ground in their shared concern for their husbands. But the closeness didn't last long. The avalanche incident led to investigations, and the spotlight once again turned to Charles. Their marriage, already on its last legs, seemed irreparable. Charles's emotional distance, coupled with the ongoing drama surrounding Camilla, left Diana feeling more alone than ever. Despite all of this, Diana was not one to give up easily. She sought help for her bulimia, determined to take back some control over her life. And in one moment of rare courage, she confronted Camilla directly at a party. But even that confrontation didn't change the reality of her situation. Charles and Camilla's relationship continued, and Diana was left to struggle alone in her crumbling marriage. And so, the crowded marriage became the defining shadow over Diana's royal life. So how did she find the courage to leave Charles and get out of that crowded marriage once and for all? The affair. In 1992, Diana's life hit a major turning point. The year began with the heartbreaking death of her father, John Spencer. Emotionally drained and feeling trapped in a failing marriage, Diana finally decided to break her silence. That same year, she quietly supported the release of Diana. Her true story, a tell-all book that exposed the cracks in her marriage to Charles, along with her personal battles with bulimia and mental health. It was a bold decision that shocked the world, and this decision led to their divorce. After their official separation, Diana found comfort in a private romance with Dr. Hasnat Khan, a heart surgeon. Their relationship was deep and passionate, but it also came with its challenges. Khan's desire for privacy didn't align with the constant media spotlight Diana lived under. She tried to shield their love by lying about their meetings, but the pressure of public scrutiny and disapproval from her family, particularly over Khan's Muslim faith, took its toll. After 2 years of trying to make it work, the couple parted ways in 1997, leaving many to wonder if Khan was truly the love Diana never fully got to keep. But everyone forgot about Khan as they heard something so shocking and tragic: conspiracy theories. The 31st of August, 1997. That night in Paris changed everything. Diana and her companion, Dodi Fayed, left the Ritz, hoping for a quiet escape from the paparazzi. Behind the wheel was Henry Paul, with bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones sitting beside them. But that peaceful getaway never happened. As they sped off into the Paris streets, paparazzi on motorcycles pursued them like vultures. They were desperate for a shot of the world's most famous woman, The car zigzagged through the streets, and what followed was a disaster. They entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, and in a split second, everything changed. The car lost control and slammed into the tunnel's wall and pillars. Diana's injuries were severe, far more serious than anyone realized at first. She was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. Despite doctors' efforts, she passed away. The news immediately reached London. Prince Charles, along with Diana's sisters, immediately flew to Paris to bring her body home. But the royal family didn't exactly win over the public with their response. People were heartbroken, angry even, feeling like the royals had been cold and detached, almost robotic in their reaction to the tragedy. It was as if they were too removed from the outpouring of emotion everyone else was feeling. But there was one thing that became a lasting, haunting image for so many. Prince Philip convincing William and Harry, just young boys at the time, to walk behind their mother's coffin. The scene of two devastated children following their mother's casket broke hearts across the globe. Yet, as heartbreaking as that moment was, the story didn't end there. Diana's death started rumors, so many rumors. People could not believe it was just an accident. Mohammed Al-Fayed, Dodi's father, became one of the loudest voices, convinced that Diana and his son had been victims of a conspiracy. He was not alone in his suspicions either. Many people shared his doubts. They refused to accept the official explanation that the driver had been drunk and caused the crash. You see, Diana herself had long felt uneasy. She often referred to the royal family as the firm, believing they were always plotting something against her. Diana also believed Charles was not just unfaithful, but capable of much worse. She was convinced he wanted her out of the picture to clear the way for his relationship with Camilla, or even his then lover, Tiggy Legaburk. Diana may have been gone, but the frenzy around her life and death was far from over. In fact, it only deepened, feeding more conspiracy theories and keeping the media circus alive. Then came the recent statement made by Prince Harry. So, what has he finally revealed about the royal family? Prince Harry's statement. Prince Harry has faced his fair share of challenges, especially after the devastating loss of his mother. But if we thought things couldn't get more dramatic, 2020 came along and shook the royal family to its core. That was the year Harry and Meghan Markle made the shocking decision to step down as senior royals. The world went crazy over this news, and the royal family didn't exactly send them off with open arms. Let's face it though, Harry was not doing this for attention. After living through the trauma of his mother's life in the spotlight, he was determined to shield his own children from the relentless pressures of royal life. He wanted something different for his family, and he was not afraid to break tradition to make that happen. Then came their tell-all interview, which fueled the rumors. Meghan revealed the truth behind their decision. It was due to the constant media attacks, harsh public criticism, and most shockingly, a lack of support from the royal institution when her mental health was spiraling. Does this sound familiar? Yes, Diana faced a similar struggle, and it is hard not to draw parallels between their experiences. Harry didn't hold back either. He called out his father, King Charles, for being emotionally distant, especially after Diana's death. That lack of support left a lasting impact on Harry, and their relationship has never fully recovered. And what about William? Rumors have started that William might have played a part in leaking information about Charles's infamous affair. With all this swirling around, the relationship between the brothers has become incredibly strained. Then, in 2022, Harry revealed something else. He said that he suspected that members of the royal family were leaking damaging stories about him and Meghan. The tension only escalated when a book called Endgame was released in 2023, where Harry pointed fingers at William. By 2024, it was clear the divide between Harry and the royal family was not going to be mended anytime soon. Charles reportedly didn't even have time to meet with his son, and that seemed to further crack their already broken relationship. So, what do you think of Harry's latest revelations? Is the royal family as perfect as they seem? Or are they as cruel as Harry says they are? Let us know in the comments. If you want to hear more shocking stories, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because we have got a lot more of this. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.